Okay, let's go ahead and get started. And we've got a bunch of announcements today. Thanks for coming. We have a bunch of us out today as well. Appreciate David Slatton bringing food today. And there's a sign-up sheet back there as well. It looks like Diana's going to be teaching a lot outside of the department. This time she's in first grade. So thanks, David, for getting the sign-up sheet. There's one back there if anybody wants to add to it. Laura made me wear this today. No, she dressed us alike. She dressed us alike so we can come to church today. But at any rate, this is part of the We Are Wilshire, the expo today. The shirts, when you're beside someone, the We Are Wilshire makes more sense, and so you don't have to put two people in one shirt. So at any rate, let me tell you what we're hoping today is people come through, even if they don't want to eat food here today, just come through and see what some of the opportunities are, so that you can refer people to that, because there's some, we're going to be getting, and we have been getting over the last several years, new members in, and some of those new members haven't fully connected yet, and we're hoping that that they'll see some volunteer possibilities there. I mean, you will not believe the booth that Wilshire and 3D put up. Oh. It is incredible. I mean, they put up a huge display, and Ann and I and Laura were here yesterday helping them get set up. And it's going to be a good event today. Like I say, even if you don't stay for lunch, please swing by James Gallery just to take a look. There's a lot of things going on in the church that you need to know about and need to tell other people about. Okay, Brianna Childs is preaching today on page 8. There are other orders of worship back here if you haven't received one. Budget update is also on page 8. Wilshire and 3D is already doing auditions, it says here, okay, for that. There's a Faith and Democracy event today from 2 to 5 at St. Paul United Methodist Church. That's on page 8. Wednesday Night Live, there are a lot of announcements, okay. New Song resumes on the 14th, that's on page 10. Adopt a Book for the Library is on page 10 also, as well as computer classes are going to be starting. And we'll do that. Oh, let me tell you, we are going to want to do, before Faye's mom goes back, we're going to be wanting to do a group photo. And this may be the day to do it. I wish we'd have done it last week when Robert was here. I need to tell you that Robert had a very bad week, okay? And Dale asked for comfort and peace for him this week, and they're getting some in-house help for him now. She says he's in good attitude, good mood, good attitude, but this sounds pretty serious to me. But I don't know the details. I may be overreacting to her text, but she asked for prayer for Robert and for herself, and it's just very concerned about his 94. 94, yeah. So
I should be so lucky.
Yes, exactly. Okay, there's a flu and COVID vaccine event on September 17th. You see that on page 11. And John Kelly is to be ordained on September 18th. Art exhibit in the South Lobby through November. Let's see. Okay, there's a chronic illness support group on page 12. A centerpiece conference. Boy, there's a lot of this. Great pictures from the adventurers. Jerry, tell us just a little bit about your trip on that.
We had a wonderful time. John and Bree went with us, and it was really fun to get to know people better, whether it was from Wilshire or a lot of people invited a guest to be their roommate. And we had good weather. It was beautiful weather, but we moved to Chicago and Grand Rapids, and then we flew out of Detroit. So it was just a wonderful
and how many
trip.
of you went? How many?
There were 45 of us.
45? That's awesome. That's awesome.
It was a big group, yeah.
That is great. That is great. Okay, Bill Brewster, who taught for us last week, here's here without his nose bandaged. Bill just had surgery on his nose. Last week he taught with a Band-Aid on his nose.
That's dedication right there.
That was, wasn't it? Okay, as well as new choral scholars are on page 15. Deconnomination forms are on 16. A lot of things going on today. Committee interests are on page nothing. That page does not have a number on it, but it's toward the back. And some of the committees. Are there any other church-wide announcements that we need to talk about before we give this over to
Jason.
I'm just thinking right now. Looking at you,
for the assist.
Yeah, I needed that. Do we want to do this picture now, or do you want? Let's do it.
We're going to do it
She's
Let's
not.
do it toward the, if you give it back to us about 10:40 or even a little before, let's do a group picture
Well,
at least.
let Faith finish. When is she leaving?
There's no plan yet because the pandemic.
Ah.
Well, let's wait till there's more of us.
Yeah, exactly. It would be great if we had another, a
Missing this
bigger
whole
group.
And there's some other
We should have a bunch out.
Yeah.
Because I know how tired she is.
Right.
Okay. Any other church-wide announcements, though, that we need to cover on that? Just like I say, swing through James Gallery if you would today. I'm going to pass the prayer book around, and we have a good start on it already. Jason, thank you for teaching us today.
Absolutely.
Very good.
All right. Good morning.
Good morning.
I was here, I guess, 3 weeks ago, maybe a month ago. Was anybody not at that? That I need to, Anna, hi. I was going to
Robert and Bonnie are back in town. They've been traveling for several months, and they're back in town now. So they're right here.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Yeah. I did a missions project with you one time. Like I saw your face and I was like, they look familiar, and then it clicked with me that we did
In Houston.
in Houston. That's right. Yeah, right after the floods.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. And what's your name again?
Robert.
Robert. Okay. Yeah.
Good morning.
Good to see you. Yeah. So I'm Jason Woodbury. My wife is Paula. We've got 3 kids. I'm just going to do a quick intro because I think I did this last time. I normally teach in the youth department, so I teach the 9th and 10th grade. So they're they're a rather raucous group, but it's good energy for a Sunday morning. So this is not necessarily have to do anything with the lesson, but today's the 21st anniversary of 9/11.
Yes.
So just I guess remember those who are still kind of dealing with that. Today's going to be a hard day for a lot of people. So as you have opportunity, say a quick prayer for those who are still dealing with that. All right. So the lesson today, when Dennis told me what the lesson was for today, I was like, come on, Dennis, what did I ever do to you? Like, come on, what did I do? It's about the genealogy of Jesus, and I was like, oh man, genealogy.
So did you go to Ancestry.com?
I really thought, well, this is going to be kind of dry. I'm not sure how I'm going to spice this one up, but it actually was very interesting. I spent more time looking at the genealogy of Jesus for this lesson than I really have ever cared to in the past. So there's a lot of really interesting nuggets once you spend some actual time looking at it. But I'm just curious, has anybody in the room, have you ever done any genealogy, ancestry type searches on your own families? Anybody? Yeah? Anybody have anything interesting that you found?
Well, even back in the day, you could go to Salt Lake City and they had a tremendous amount of genealogy. Now you go to 23andMe, it'll tell you something.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's almost always somebody that's hung in your background for doing something bad. Or,
Yeah.
Great stories, though. I can get into it, but this is your time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's usually not all saints in your
No, there has to be a progressive. It has to be a bad guy.
Yeah.
My cousins did one and found a lost sister
Oh, really?
that they did not know about. And it was very interesting.
Wow. Well, how did the sister just got separated?
I think it was an extramarital affair,
Okay.
which is unfortunate, but happened.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
We had one in our family where they were from Kearns, Texas. My grandfather was a druggist there, and the small side story was they were the ones who decided to try to get people to not go to Dallas for shopping at Christmas holidays, so they built a big Santa Claus there, which became Big Tex.
Right.
But anyway, so the thing that was of interest is a sad story that one of his relatives or cousin had just sold a bunch of cotton and was walking to the bank, and it was like, this was $1,500, and back in 18-something, that was a lot of money, and was killed over that. Somebody stole the money and killed him, and his wife became kind of a pariah of the family, apparently. Didn't became very bitter and just changed her life completely. And there were 5 people, as my dad said, at her funeral because she had run everybody off. And it was just a sad story.
Yeah. Wow.
But it goes back and forth. My great-great-grandfather was a sheriff in Willis County. They tried to hang him. Things were bad then. It was after the Civil War, they didn't want any law and order. Maybe he got out of it, but things were very disruptive. And law and order, they look back to the old days and they think that was, no, it wasn't. Not necessarily.
Yeah, yeah.
It was wild.
It's interesting when you go back and look at it, what things were happening that you're right, that would really seem out of place, or two, like, you know, my ancestor was a criminal or whatever. So yeah, we looked at one was recently done on my wife's side, and I don't know that there was anything super spectacular except that we found that my wife's maiden name is Abernathy, and so we found that in her genealogy there is a George Washington Abernathy, as well as a William Shakespeare Abernathy.
Huh.
So yeah, not too creative on the naming side. And then on my side, one was done a few years back, and I learned that John Woodbury was the first Woodbury that came over from England and founded the Woodbury Soap Company, which eventually got bought by Jergens. So it was interesting to go, huh, there was an entrepreneur in the family at one point in time. So if you haven't already opened your Bibles, we're gonna look at, go to Matthew 1 first, and we're gonna start there, and then we're gonna flip over to Luke. So if you want to start at Matthew 1, and then if you want to put your finger on Luke 1, we're gonna go between those two. And what we're going to talk about, both Matthew and Luke have a genealogical record of Jesus. We're going to look at both of those and kind of compare and contrast what Matthew put forth as his genealogical record versus what Luke did, and really what that means. There's also a passage we're going to look at in Luke before his genealogical record that talks about like what happened with Mary. It'll be a very familiar passage to you because we talk about it every Advent. So we're going to do both of those. But if you go to Matthew 1, you notice that first of all, Matthew is the first book of the New Testament, right? So right at the very beginning of the New Testament and the very beginning of the first book of the New Testament, Matthew starts with a genealogy, and to me it's like, how, no better way to bore your audience right from the start than to start off with a genealogy. I was just thinking, man, if you're going to write a book and have people be interested in it, like start with something else and then put the genealogy in an appendix or something. But he starts with the genealogy right from the start, and why he would do that is because genealogies were really important to the Israelites, okay? Really important. So just some examples of that. If you look in Deuteronomy says that the king of Israel must be a Jew, okay? So if you're going to lay claim to the throne, you have to be able to prove, and this is way before 23 and all these internet sites, like you needed to be able to prove that that you were a Jew. 2 Samuel says that the king had to be a descendant of David. So again, you would need to be able to show that you were descended from David. It was also important for the remnant returning from Babylon. I think we talked about this a few weeks ago when I was here. The Babylonian captivity, right? The remnant that stayed behind, it was very important for them returning from captivity to be able to trace their Jewish lineage, right? Because when they went to Babylon, there was some intermarrying, and so when they came back, it would have been very important to say, I can still trace my Jewish lineage back. And then the other thing was, no one could serve as a priest if their name wasn't found in the official genealogical record. Okay? So all these sort of criteria for if you wanted to be king, if you wanted to be priest, right? It was very important to them. And so Matthew starts off right at the beginning of his book by giving this genealogical record. Not that Matthew is trying to lay claim to being king, or he's trying to lay claim to being priest. He's trying to show that Jesus is the Christ and the Messiah. And Matthew was a Jew. He was also a former tax collector, so he was probably intelligent, well-educated, right? Very smart, literate in Greek, and he also knew that he was writing to Jews, and he knew that that he would have needed to kind of tick these boxes, if you will, before he could ever even get into describing Jesus' life and his ministry and all the wonderful things that he did. Like, he knew that writing to a Jewish audience, that there would have been kind of crossed arms reading this, listening to this story, because we don't even know if he's a Jew. We don't know if he's descended from David. Like, there's all these criteria that you need to have solved ahead of time before we're even going to consider the fact that he might be the Messiah. So Matthew knows that. He's a Jew. He's writing to Jews, and so right off the bat, he's like, I'm going to settle this right here and now. We're going to describe kind of Jesus' genealogy. The other thing, and I'll stop talking and then somebody can read. When we read the genealogy, notice that Matthew starts with Abraham. He doesn't describe who Abraham is. So there's just a presumption that, look, I'm writing to a Jewish audience. You guys will know who Abraham is. So there's this assumption right from the bat that what I'm describing is going to land with my audience. Okay, so after that preamble, can someone read Matthew 1, and we're doing 1 through 17, and whoever the brave soul is, you may have to just do the best you can with all these names. Or we can break it up into 2 people.
Yeah, break it up.
Why don't we do that? Let's do one. We won't punish one person. Let's do 1 through 11, and then somebody can do 12 through 17. So how about 1 through 11?
All right, I'll do 1 through 11.
Okay. And then who will take then after Brian 12 through 17?
Laura.
I would, but I left my glasses at home.
Likely An account of the genealogy of Jesus the Messiah, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Abraham was the father of Isaac, and Isaac the father of Jacob, and Jacob the father of Judah and his brothers, and Judah the father of Perez, and Zerah by Tamar, and Perez the father of Hezron, and Hezron the father of Aram, and Aram the father of Amminadab, and Amminadab the father of Nahshon, and Nahshon the father of Salmon, and Salmon the father of Boaz by Rahab, and Boaz the father of Obed by Ruth, and Obed the father of Jesse, and Jesse the father of King David. And David was the father of Solomon by the wife of Uriah, and Solomon the father of Rehoboam, and Rehoboam the father of Abijah, and Abijah the father of Asaph, and Asaph the father of Jehoshaphat, and Jehoshaphat the father of Joram, and Joram the father of Uzziah, and Uzziah the father of Jotham, and Jotham the father of Ahaz, and Ahaz the father of Hezekiah, and Hezekiah the father of Manasseh, and Manasseh the father of Amos, and Amos the father of Josiah, and Josiah the father of Jeconiah and his brothers, at the time of the deportation to Babylon. And after the deportation to Babylon, Jeconiah was the father of Salathiel, and Salathiel the father of Zerubbabel, and Zerubbabel the father of Abiud, and Abiud the father of Eliakim, and Eliakim the father of Azor, and Azor the father of Zadok, and Zadok the father of Achim, and Achim the father of Eliad, and Eliad the father of Eleazar, and Eleazar the father of Mathan, and Mathan the father of Jacob, and Jacob the father of Joseph, the husband of Mary, of whom Jesus was born, who is called the Messiah. So all the generations from Abraham to David are 14 generations, and from David to the deportation to Babylon, 14 generations, and from the deportation to Babylon to the Messiah, 14 generations.
All right.
Awesome. That's some names.
And you got all the pronunciations exactly right. Exactly.
Yeah, great, thanks.
So says me. Okay, so, you know, why does, without going and picking apart every single name, which I'm not going to do, why do you think that Matthew even bothers writing this down? Now, I've given you a hint already in that he's writing to a Jewish audience, okay, who had these rules from the Old Testament. Why else would you think Matthew had been writing all of this down?
I think to prove to the Jews that Jesus was in the lineage of David.
Right.
And
right.
Abraham, of course. But.
Right, we're just coming out of the Old Testament, and there's all sorts of Old Testament scriptures that point to the coming Messiah, that point to the fact that the coming Messiah would be the son of David. And so Matthew writes this to make the point, or to point out that this is the fulfillment of the Old Testament scripture. Not only is it ticking the boxes that yes, he's a Jew, yes, he's a descendant of David, whatever, but that this is also a fulfillment of all of these Old Testament scriptures that they would have been familiar with.
So how do you reconcile this with Immaculate Conception and virgin birth? How does this lineage of Joseph matter if Joseph isn't actually Jesus' father?
Okay, so good question.
Kind of like they're hedging their bet here.
Yeah.
If you don't buy the virgin birth story, well, here's another story. He's the direct descendant of Abraham and ticks all the boxes.
Yeah, yeah. So I'll tell you how I think about it, and then anybody else can chime in for sure. But the Immaculate Conception obviously wasn't a normal impregnation and conception. But I think what Matthew is saying is that Jesus was from that particular line, even though Joseph wasn't necessarily his biological father in the way that we would think of it. And I look at it as it would not have mattered from the sense that he was sort of Jesus' adopted father. Mary was obviously the actual mother, and when we go look at Luke's account of things, when Luke gives his genealogy, Luke's genealogy actually does trace it back through Mary. Matthew goes through Joseph. Luke goes through Mary. Okay, so I'm kind of giving away a little bit of where we're going.
But Matthew, he didn't say Bathsheba. He says the wife of Uriah. I mean, he's saying all male names in this thing. So,
right.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm sort of giving away the punchline of the whole lesson here, but Brian, even Luke's account of the genealogy, which goes through Mary, which would have been, she was his mother, traces it back to David. So both routes, if you can think of like these two genealogical records, that one goes Joseph's route, one goes Mary's route, they end up back at David. So that's how I would.
I don't know how much they would brag about it. I mean, I don't think on the birth announcement they said God was the father of Jesus here. But it seems like to me the common people around, they assumed this was Mary and Joseph's child, and that was kind of what was going on as well. I don't know how much bragging there was done about it, because they would, as he was raised as a normal boy. So.
Yeah. Well, and when we go to Luke's record of it, Luke even makes an allusion to that as well, because he says Joseph was, I'm doing this from memory here, Joseph was the father of Jesus, or so it was thought.
Yeah.
Right? And so Luke's even like, this is what was commonly thought, even though wink, wink, we know that's not really happened.
It seems like at that time, a lot of people would have been able to trace their lineage back to Abraham. They were all Jews. They all lived right there in that that part of the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they probably would have, you're right. But I think it would have been important to be able to show that. Again, this would have been a group of people that you would have needed to be able to show that in the genealogical record.
It could be that since it was to Jews and they knew the history and they also knew the problem that was there, so in order to avoid getting into an argument about the problem of the birth, let's just key in and start with Abraham. And those who want to argue about the birth, that's way back there, but we're going to start with Abraham and go forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all right.
I think it's interesting though, because two of the women that are mentioned in this passage are not Jews. Rahab was a Canaanite, Ruth was a Midianite. And I think that's very interesting. The Jewish lineage did come through, but those two women are part of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and Rahab was a spy too.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, if you look at the people that are in this genealogy, and this goes back to your point, forgot your name. David, yes, this goes back to David's point. I mean, there's not all saints in this genealogical record, right? I mean, if you look at this, you know, you've got some spies, you've got some prostitutes, you have some Gentiles, you have slaves, you have murderers, King David, you have liars. I mean, you've got some salty people that are making up this genealogical record, right? It's just generally kind of a broken and sinful lot. And you're right, it's not necessarily 100% Jewish. If you look at Matthew's record, it is all men. Matthew traces his genealogical record based off of those who could have laid claim to the throne. So generally, the firstborn male, going all the way back up to Abraham. Not necessarily the blood lineage. Okay, so that's why there's some differences between the two. But yeah, but I think the point of that, which I'm glad you raised the point, Mara, I think the point of that is it shows that God's Messiah was brought into the world not based off of the good works of mankind, right? There wasn't any sort of, prerequisite or anything that Jesus needed to have been brought into the world based off of a line that was pure. That God brought about the salvation and his salvific work in the world through a broken people, which he still does today. He's bringing about the continued salvation and redemption of the world through a broken people. But God's mercy goes before us, and so we are able to take his word out into the world. But I think you're right. If you look at it, there's just a lot of people in here that you're like, they're not the ones that you would expect.
I just think that's God's way of, answering all these questions about these kind of people we have today. One of them's going to fit in that category, so no matter how bad they are, they can't say, well, I don't belong there, look how bad I am. But he shows us that, God can work with all kinds of people, and does.
Right.
I'm sorry, I heard that.
We'll share it.
I was going to say, I'm curious
Well,
now.
Sandra said it. She said that explains Trump.
Good one.
That's great.
Yeah.
Good thing Mike's not here.
Some sinners and some saints. But yeah, so we'll shift for the sake of time. So that's Matthew's genealogical record. Okay. Again, just to recap real quick, Matthew's a Jew. He's writing to Jews. He knows that it's going to be important right from the start to kind of establish the fact that yes, Jesus came from the line of David, and here it is, and we've kept it in Jesus is in the genealogical record, right? And so he can therefore lay claim to being priest, which we know that he does because he is the King of Kings, Lord of Lords, and Paul, I think, says that he's the priest in the line of Melchizedek. I mean, there's all sorts of like references to Jesus being priest. So he's like, here's how he can lay claim to all of that.
We've heard a lot about the kings and queens of England lately, and that's not a really bunch that you necessarily want to copy. They're mixed, like the rest of us.
Mm-hmm.
And they've gone out of the way in the Bible to, I don't know that it's all accurate. Certainly nothing I've read about my genealogy is completely accurate, but it tells the story, makes the points
Yeah.
that, you know.
Does that list of names?
Yeah.
Does that list of names appear anywhere else?
So I don't think so, not that I'm aware of at least.
So maybe
I mean, some of the names appear in other books, like some of the names that were listed there are in Jeremiah, which we talked about a month ago. Like, you might recognize some of the names as, oh yeah, he was the king during the time of Jeremiah.
Right.
So they will appear, but like in order here, no. I don't.
So it might have just been to pass on the record from wherever he got it. Good thing he did, or.
Oh, are you asking if it appeared anywhere else just in the world
No,
or
in
in
the
the
Bible.
Bible? Oh, yeah, and not that I'm aware of in the Bible, no.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, he must have gotten a list from somewhere.
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Or he's got a really good memory.
So yeah, right. Okay, so let's go to Luke 1. We're going to shift out of genealogical records for a second and go to a very familiar passage. Luke 1, 26 through 38. So this is when Mary is visited by the angel Gabriel. Gabriel pays her a visit. These would be very familiar verses that we would read during the Advent season. Okay, Mary is in Nazareth at this point in time. We were told that she's a virgin. She was probably in her mid-teens. We don't exactly know the age, but somewhere in the 14 to 16-year-old age, I would guess. Interestingly enough, Nazareth, this is the first mention chronologically of Nazareth in all of the Old Testament or New Testament. It's not mentioned in the Old Testament at all. It was 15 miles from the Sea of Galilee, and it's just sort of like this backwater town. I don't know what you would equate that to in Texas, but think of like some just town out in the middle of nowhere. That's kind of what Nazareth was at the time. And so Mary's in Nazareth, and the angel Gabriel pays her a visit, and so let's read that, and then we'll talk about that for a second. So does somebody want to read Luke 1, 26 through 38?
I'll read it. I'm going to read it from the Message. In the 6th month of Elizabeth's pregnancy, God sent the angel Gabriel to the Galilean village of Nazareth, to a virgin engaged to be married to a man descended from David. His name was Joseph, and the virgin's name Mary. Upon entering, Gabriel greeted her. Good morning. You're beautiful with God's beauty, beautiful inside and out. God be with you. She was thoroughly shaken, wondering what was behind a greeting like that. But the angel assured her, Mary, you have nothing to fear. God has a surprise for you. You will become pregnant and give birth to a son and call his name Jesus. He will be great, be called Son of the Highest. The Lord God will give him the throne of his father David. He will rule Jacob's house forever, no end ever to his kingdom. How far to go?
38.
Mary said to the angel, but how? I've never slept with a man. The angel answered, the Holy Spirit will come upon you. The power of the highest hover over you. Therefore, the child you bring to birth will be called Holy Son of God. And did you know that your cousin Elizabeth conceived a son as old as she is? Everyone called her barren, and here she is 6 months pregnant. Nothing, you see, is impossible with God. And Mary said, yes, I see it all now. I'm the Lord's maid ready to serve. Let it be with me just as you say. Then the angel left her.
Okay, thanks, Hannah. So, right from the start of the passage, Luke says that Joseph is a descendant of David, okay? But that's all that we're given. Luke gets to the genealogical record later, in fact, 2 chapters later, where he kind of lays it all out. Right here, he just says that, you know, he's introducing the main characters, slight reference to Joseph as a descendant of David, but Luke's story, and Luke as a writer, is very much more about the relational aspect of how all this happened versus like wanting to tick the box for a Jewish audience, right? Luke's saying, let's get into the story of what happened and the relationships that are happening here, and then we'll get to the genealogical record. And so the birth lineage really is not as important to Luke as it is to Matthew. It's still important, just not as. It's the relational aspect of the story that Luke's trying to get to here. So, you know the story. The angel Gabriel comes to her, says, "Greetings, you who are highly favored." That's what my version says. You know, you are going to be great with child. He will be called the Holy One. Mary's like, aha, how can that be? Like, you know, there's certain things I haven't done. And the angel says, well, the Holy Spirit will come upon you. You will be great with child. And Mary, which is fascinating to me, after all of this, Mary just has really one question, which is a very practical question, which is, how can this be? She's not like questioning, why me? Why, you know, I don't believe any of this. She just wants to know, okay, practically speaking, how can this be? Gabriel gives her the explanation of not only how she will conceive, but who her son will become, which is a reference back to Isaiah 7:14, which is that the virgin will conceive and bear a son. The interesting thing to me is, did you notice that Gabriel says that he will be called the Son of God? Right? That he will be called the Son of God. Not that someday he will become the Son of God. He will be called the Son of God. When he is born, he will be Jesus, and he will be called the Son of God, right? And so it's not that he will do something to become this, or one day he will become this. Like, he already is the Son of God and should be named so right from the beginning. Which is very similar to John's Gospel, where John starts from his very first chapter and talks about how Jesus was with God and was the Word from the very beginning. Luke's kind of establishing that as well through Gabriel by saying he is to be called Son of God. There is no courses he has to take. There's no like Messiah, major or minor. Like, he is the Son of God, and he is to be called that. He goes on to give the declaration of the greatness of Jesus. He will be great. He will be called the Son of the Most High. And the Lord God will give to him the throne of his ancestor David. He will reign over the house of Jacob forever, and of his kingdom there will be no end. And then Mary's simple statement of faith at the very end is, may your word be to me, may your word to me be fulfilled. I am the Lord's servant. May your word to me be fulfilled. Remarkable for somebody in that day and age. A, her age. B, knowing that this is going to make her life super complicated to try to explain to somebody how this happened. No, really. You know, it was the Holy Spirit. You know, she just has a very simple statement of faith that I'm the Lord's servant. Let your word be to me fulfilled. If Matthew's, think about it this way, if Matthew's passage is the past, Luke's is very much the present. Luke starts with what's happening right now. Matthew starts with here's what's happening in the past. Luke starts with here's what was happening right now. Your cousin Elizabeth is with child. You're going to be with child. Everything's kind of happening right in the very present. Okay.
And Jesus must have been a premature baby, since it says this happened in the 6th month, and we celebrate his birthday in December. Should have been March.
Different calendar back then?
Yeah.
Well, I looked it up and it said there's 12 months in the Jewish calendar too, so I read forensically. I like to look at stuff and go, how could that be? Anyway.
Well, haven't they kind of dulled down the passage where the angel appears to Mary? That's not very impressive, unless you read the old, like King James or even this one. You know, I mean, that was an astounding thing, but it wasn't a forensic, it wasn't a piece of accounting at all. It was impressive. And when you change the way the language, I'm kind of old fashioned, you know, the translations are, I think they carry more of the spirit. Not that I'm a scholar of the announcement. It was something special, and it wouldn't have been done in ordinary language, I don't think. But,
Yeah.
hello, how are you? You know, that wasn't scary.
Yeah, right, I agree. It's much more about the spirit and intent than it is the forensics analysis of every word. Brian, we could do a whole nother lesson on, you know, is December 25th really the Lord's birth? I mean, there's a lot of speculation around, is that really it or not, you know, or were the early Christians trying to align the celebration of the birth of Christ with a popular pagan celebration that was going on at the same time so that they could say, hey, everybody,
Yeah,
you know, here's
tie together.
let's get excited about Christ as well, right? You know, and there's speculation around, well, okay, hold on a second. Would Mary and Joseph have been in a manger in the dead middle of winter? You know, is that really realistic to think that they would be staying in a manger in the dead middle of winter? So there's all sorts of darts that you can throw at it. I don't know the answer, to tell you the truth, but I think, yeah, it's more, like you said, the spirit of what's happening in the forensics
A
analysis.
lot of these pagan holidays, been Christian in a way.
Yeah, we've co-opted.
Yeah, yeah.
I'd always heard too that the version of Luke is for the Gentiles, where, you know, Matthew's for the Jews, so they're trying to appeal to two different crowds.
Correct. Yes, that's a great point, Don. Yeah, Luke is writing to basically mostly a Gentile audience. Yes, so they wouldn't have expected that, you know, Jesus had all of these genealogical records and that we could tie it back in this way and that way, right? Yeah, it would have been more important that Jesus came for all, including the Gentiles. So yeah, you're right. Yeah. Okay, so let's go to Luke's genealogy then. It's in chapter 3. Are any other questions about the Mary, comments about the Mary passage? No? Okay. Then Luke 3, and it's 23 through 28. This is Luke's genealogy of Jesus, and you'll notice that there's a lot of stuff already happening in Luke 3 before we even get to this. His introduction of John the Baptist. By the way, in Luke chapter 2 is the whole, you know, birth story and the shepherds, and they take him to the temple, and he's 12 years old and he's teaching in the temple. So there's a lot of things that have happened before Luke finally gets around to like even telling the genealogical record. And by this time, and what we're going to read in verses 23 through 28 is that Jesus has already started his ministry at this point in time. Now you'll notice that when we read this, you may not have memorized Matthew's genealogy, so just trust me on this. Like there's some differences in the names between the two, and so we'll kind of talk about the differences between those two. But largely speaking, you know, Matthew's genealogical record is very much the legal view of the genealogical record, versus Luke's was kind of the blood lineage view of things, right? Matthew's is the legal lineage of Jesus through Joseph, i.e., the firstborn or those who could have sat on the throne, okay? Versus Luke provides the blood lineage of Jesus through Mary. Okay, so can someone then read Luke 3, 23 through 28?
All right,
Go ahead.
go ahead.
Jesus was about 30 years old when he began his work. He was the son, as was thought, of Joseph of Heli, son of Mathat, son of Levi, son of Malachi, son of Janai, son of Joseph, son of Matthias, son of Amos, son of Nahum, son of Esli, son of Nagai, son of Matt, son of Matthias, son of Simeon, son of Jesek, son of Jodah, son of Jonan, son of Risha, son of Jerubbaal, son of Shealtiel, son of Neri, son of Melchi, son of Adi, son of Kosam, son of Elmadam, son of Er, son of Joshua, son of Eliezer, son of Jorim, son of Mathat, son of Levi, son of Simeon, son of Judah, son of Joseph, son of Jonan, son of Eliakim, son of Meliah, son of Menah, son of Mathatha, son of Nathan, son of David, son of Jesse, son of Obed, son of Boaz, son of Salah, son of Nahshon, son of Aminadab, son of Admin, son of Arn, son of Hezron, son of Perez, son of Judah, son of Jacob, son of Isaac, son of Abraham.
Okay, stop right there. Do you notice that it keeps going beyond Abraham?
Yes.
Okay.
Son of Terah, son of Nahor, son of Serug, son of Reu, son of Peleg, son of Eber, son of Shelah, son of Canaan, son of Ephrathzadid, son of Shem, son of Noah, son of Lamech, son of Methuselah, son of Enoch, son of Jared, son of Mathaliel, son of Canaan, son of Enos, son of Seth, son of Adam, son of God.
All right.
Go.
Gold star.
Not even close.
Gold star for Barbara. Yeah, very good. So I paused you for a reason because I didn't notice this the first time around, but Luke goes beyond Abraham. Luke goes all the way back to God, okay? And so again, he's writing for a Gentile audience, and so for him to stop at Abraham, they would have been like, you know, okay. He takes it all the way back to God to truly show that Jesus is, you know, the Son of God. There's an interesting chart that I found, and I meant to put this up. I'm going to walk my laptop around. But there's an interesting chart that I found that shows kind of the difference of the genealogies between the two. And so I'll show you this. It shows the genealogical record, and it goes from God all the way down to Abraham, and you can see the red line there. That's where Matthew picks up his gospel, or his genealogical record. And then from Abraham down to David is the same, and at David, that's where they split, right? And at David, where they split are the two sons of David, okay? So Matthew is going...
He's on Solomon.
Yeah, he's going with Solomon, who was the firstborn, okay? Luke, I'm doing this upside down, Luke is going through Nathan, okay?
Interesting.
Yeah, but they both trace it. They both trace it back to David. This route right here is Luke's genealogical record. This one on the what would that be? Left. That's Matthew's genealogical record, right? Luke goes all the way back up to God. They both go down through Abraham, David, and that's where they split. But they split because of one's tracing it through one son of David, one's tracing it through the other. Oh, sorry.
So you already had it memorized, we know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just, and I can email this out or whatever. But
Yeah,
it's
email it
just,
to me, I'll send it out.
Huh?
Email it, I'll send it out to him.
Yeah, yeah. It's just, it's an interesting visual of like how they both